The alien mockery, the great hall of the alien warship, was filled with cold silver light. Rows of tall figures stood with pride, their armor glowing like polished stone. Their weapons, slim and sleek, hung by their sides like ornaments rather than tools. To them, battle was science, clean and perfect. And in the center of the hall, they looked at the humans as if they were children playing with sticks. The alien commander stepped forward, his eyes glowing faint green. He studied the human rifles with disgust, his lip curling as if he smelled rot. One of the human marines shifted slightly, but said nothing. The commander laughed, a sharp, cruel sound. "Your weapons," he sneered. "They shake when you fire them. They kick back like frightened animals. Your weapons have recoil." He spread his arms wide, letting the other aliens laugh with him. The hall echoed with their voices. Smooth and mocking, the humans stood in silence, 5 Marines in dark armor, helmets under their arms, rifles at their sides. They had been through wars before. They had seen enemies stronger than this, but the mockery still cut deep. They were not fools. They knew what their weapons could do. And they also knew the aliens had never seen the true strength of Earth's firepower. The commander kept walking in slow circles, his voice dripping with pride. "Our weapons do not need to recoil. Our beams are pure, precise, perfect. No wasted energy. No clumsy explosions. No thunderous noises to hurt the ear." He gestured to a nearby wall panel, and one alien soldier fired a thin green beam. The light pierced the wall, leaving a neat round hole, no wider than a coin. The aliens applauded softly, like scholars admiring a painting. Then they turned again to the humans, smirking, waiting. The leader of the human squad, Sergeant Cole, clenched his jaw. He had fought on ruined cities, deserts, and frozen battlefields. He had seen friends fall, seen enemies burn. To him, recoil was not a flaw. It was a reminder of the raw force, unleashed with every shot. He let the silence grow heavy before he finally spoke. "Recoil," he said calmly, "is power." The aliens laughed even louder. One of them stepped forward, tall and thin, his voice sharp like glass. "Power? No, human. Recoil is waste. Recoil is weakness. Recoil means you cannot control your weapon. Look at you. Your rifles shake you like children playing with hammers." He leaned close, his glowing eyes daring the humans to answer. But Cole stayed calm, his hand resting lightly on his rifle. The room seemed to grow colder. The humans were outnumbered, surrounded in the heart of an alien warship. Yet they stood like stone, unbroken. The aliens thought them weak. But the humans knew something the aliens did not, something that would soon turn the laughter into silence. Private Ramirez, the youngest of the squad, shifted his weight and muttered under his breath. He hated the way the aliens stared, as if humans were ants. He whispered, "Just one shot, Sergeant. Let me show them." But Cole lifted a hand, silencing him. Not yet, he thought. Let them laugh longer, the deeper their pride. The sharper their fall, the alien commander grinned wide, his teeth shining like polished bone. "You humans come into our hall with toys. You think yourself soldiers, but your weapons belong to a primitive age. Our ancestors used such clumsy tools before they learned to master energy." He tapped the human rifle with a clawed finger, as if it were already broken. Bullets, fire, smoke, recoil. Pathetic. The human marines stared back without blinking. Every insult was like a spark striking dry wood. The tension grew heavy, almost alive. The aliens mistook silence for weakness. They did not know silence was patience. They did not know patience was the mask of power. Then the commander leaned closer, his voice soft but sharp. "Tell me, little humans, when your toy kicks against your shoulder, do you cry from the pain?" The aliens laughed again, the sound like knives scraping stone, but the humans remained calm. Cole only smiled. a thin, dangerous smile, and whispered in a voice so low it made the laughter pause. "Wait until you see the size of the hole it makes." The hole went quiet. Just for a moment, the aliens did not yet understand the weight of those words. But soon, very soon, they would. The demonstration. The silence in the alien hall was sharp. Like a blade hanging in the air, the aliens had laughed until their throats were dry. But the human sergeant's last words had cut through their pride. "Wait until you see the size of the hole it makes," he had said. And though the aliens still smirked, there was a shadow of unease behind their glowing eyes. The alien commander straightened his tall frame, his voice echoing through the chamber. "Very well, human. Let us see this. Demonstration." He gestured toward the far wall, where armored panels lined the surface. Each one was designed to resist high-energy beams, shields strong enough to withstand their sleek weapons. The commander smiled cruelly, certain that the humans' crude guns would do little more than scratch. Sergeant Cole nodded once to his squad. Private Ramirez stepped forward, his hands steady, but his jaw tight. The alien soldiers leaned closer, their laughter returning in soft waves. One whispered, "Watch how the toy kicks from his hands." Another hissed, "Perhaps the recoil will break his shoulder." Their amusement filled the hall like smoke. Choking and arrogant, Ramirez raised his rifle, the metal dark and heavy under the silver lights. He pressed the butt into his shoulder with practiced ease. The alien eyes followed every move, waiting to see clumsiness, waiting to see weakness. But Ramirez moved with the calm of a soldier who had lived through battles. He inhaled, steady, and pulled the trigger. The sound exploded through the chamber, like thunder trapped in stone. The walls trembled. The echoes rolled for long seconds. Even the floor seemed to shake under the raw force of the shot. The aliens flinched, some covering their ears at the violent noise. None of their weapons had ever roared like that. The panel on the far wall sparked, then split wide, metal bent inward, smoking and cracked. A gaping hole appeared, larger than any alien beam had ever made. Through it, the light of the outer corridor spilled, sharp and undeniable. Silence fell heavier than before. The alien commander's smile died on his lips. He stared at the ruined panel as if it had betrayed him. One of his officers stammered, That cannot be right. The shield plating." But the evidence was there, burning and smoking in plain sight. The humans stood calm. No laughter, no celebration, only silence. Ramirez lowered his rifle, his arm steady despite the recoil. He looked at the aliens, his voice flat. "That was one bullet," he said. "One." Sergeant Cole repeated, his tone colder than iron. The word echoed, making the silence even sharper. The aliens shifted uneasily, pride cracking like thin glass. Their weapons, their sleek beams, had always left neat circles, no larger than a coin. But this hole was the size of a man's head. Jagged, messy, terrifying. Recoil was not weakness. It was proof of brutal force unleashed. The commander stepped forward again, though slower now. His glowing eyes narrowed, his voice less confident. "Your weapon makes noise, yes, and a hole. But noise is not power. Chaos is not strength." His words were sharp, but his tone had lost the weight of certainty. He was defending himself more than attacking them. Sergeant Cole walked toward the shattered panel. He touched the twisted metal edges, still warm from the bullet's bite. Then he turned back and said, "Our weapons are not made to look clean. They are made to end fights." He gestured at the hole. "That wall was stronger than your armor, and it is gone." The alien soldiers murmured among themselves, their voices uneasy. Some looked at their sleek rifles as if they were toys. Others avoided the human's gaze, shame crawling across their proud faces. Still, a few clung to arrogance, unwilling to admit fear. The commander barked to silence them, but even his voice cracked. He glared at Cole, forcing a smirk. One shot, one hole. Impressive perhaps. But your weapon shakes your body. Your hands tremble with every blast. How long can you fight before it breaks you? His words were bitter, desperate, like claws scratching a sinking wall. Cole did not answer with words. Instead, he lifted his own rifle and aimed again. The aliens tensed, unsure whether to stop him or to watch. Cole fired once more. The thunder cracked louder than before. Another hole tore through the wall, wider, uglier, unstoppable. 2 holes now gaped like eyes staring back at the aliens. Cold, merciless, undeniable. The humans stood calm, their shoulders steady, their rifles steady, their silence heavy. It was not weakness, it was power controlled. The commander's smirk faltered, and for the first time, his voice carried no laughter. He whispered almost to himself, "Your weapons, they are not toys." The human sergeant gave a faint smile. "Now you understand recoil," he said. "It means we survive." The aliens did not laugh again. The echo of the gunfire still hung in the air, and the size of the holes burned in their memory. The revelation. The smell of smoke lingered in the alien hall. The 2 bullet holes glared from the wall like open wounds, jagged and black. No one spoke. No one laughed. The echo of thunder still lived in the air, for the first time. The aliens looked at the humans not as children, but as something they could not fully understand. Sergeant Cole lowered his rifle with calm hands. His face was steady, his voice low but firm. "You asked about recoil," he said. "Now you have seen it." He let the words sink into the silence. The alien commander did not answer at once. His glowing eyes darted between the ruined wall and the humans standing like stone. His mind searched for pride, for control. But pride was slipping through his fingers. One alien soldier whispered to another, "Their weapons! They do not burn neat holes. They tear. They shatter," another hissed back. "Too loud, too messy, too dangerous." But his voice shook as he spoke. The aliens were used to clean battles, beams of light that cut in silence. They had never seen a weapon that roared like a storm and broke steel like glass. Private Ramirez watched them closely. He could see fear in their eyes, though they tried to hide it. He wanted to laugh, but Cole's silence held the squad in discipline. This was not the moment for jokes. This was the moment the aliens were beginning to see the truth. The commander finally spoke, his voice quieter than before. "You humans, you waste energy, you waste precision. Your tools are crude." But even as he said it, his eyes betrayed doubt. Cole stepped closer, each step slow and deliberate. "Our tools," he said, "are born from blood, from history, from wars that broke our world more than once." He touched the rifle, not as a weapon, but as a memory. "This recoil you mock. It is the echo of every battle we survived." The aliens shifted uneasily. They had studied human history, but only from books, only from cold reports. They had never stood in front of the weapons that history had built. One soldier whispered, "They built these because they had to." Another murmured, "Not for beauty, not for elegance, but for survival." The humans did not need to explain further. The holes in the wall spoke louder than words. But Cole kept speaking, his tone steady, his eyes locked on the commander. "You live in peace until war finds you," he said. "We were born in war, raised in fire, and recoil is not weakness. It is proof of force, proof that what leaves the barrel will not be stopped." The alien commander clenched his fists. He wanted to argue, but his mind replayed the thunder of the rifle, the sight of the wall breaking apart. His own weapon, his sleek energy beam, could not match such raw violence. It was clean, yes, but it was not terrifying. And for the first time in his life, he wondered if clean had made them soft. Private Ramirez leaned forward slightly, his voice sharp. "You call our weapons clumsy, but clumsy is better than useless." He tapped his rifle with a finger. This kicks against my shoulder. Yes, but I can carry it through hell, mud, fire, storms, and it will still fire. He looked around at the aliens. Can your perfect toys do the same? A ripple of whispers ran through the alien ranks. Some of them looked down, shame on their faces. Others looked at their weapons with doubt, as if for the first time they questioned their worth. The commander barked at them to stay silent, but the cracks in their pride were growing. Cole let the silence stretch again. He knew silence was a weapon as sharp as any bullet. Then he said, "We do not fear recoil, we respect it, we master it, because every push reminds us of the power we hold." He raised the rifle again, not to fire, but to show it like a banner. This is not weakness. This is strength. The kind that shakes the ground when it speaks. The commander's face darkened, but he did not laugh this time. Instead, he studied the humans with something colder than mockery. It was recognition. He was beginning to see that recoil was not a flaw. It was the mark of weapons, designed to break more than walls. It was the mark of survivors. The revelation spread like a slow fire through the hall. The aliens, once proud and mocking, now stood uncertain. Their perfect beams suddenly felt fragile. Their laughter was gone, replaced by the heavy weight of fear and respect. And deep in their hearts, they knew the humans were not to be mocked again. The comparison. The hall had grown heavy with silence. The smell of gunpowder still clung to the air, sharp and alien, to those who had never breathed war in its raw form. The aliens no longer laughed, yet pride still smoldered in their eyes. They could not accept defeat with only 2 bullet holes burned into their memory, so the commander raised a long, thin hand and said, "If you call this power, then let us compare." He gestured to one of his soldiers, who stepped forward with their sleek rifle. The weapon gleamed under the silver light, polished and flawless. Its grip was delicate, its barrel smooth, like a piece of art crafted by scholars. The alien soldier lifted it with elegance. No trembling, no noise. He aimed at a fresh wall panel across the chamber. A beam of green light burst forth, silent and perfect. When it struck, a small, neat circle burned into the surface, no bigger than a coin. The metal glowed faintly before cooling into silence. The aliens nodded to one another, pride returning in their whispers. "Precision," one said. "Perfection," said another. The commander turned back to the humans with a smirk that tried to hide his earlier unease. "See," he declared, "no chaos, no wasted energy, no childish thunder, only focus, only control." Sergeant Cole gave no answer. Instead, he looked to Private Ramirez. Then to Corporal Hayes. Hayes stepped forward, carrying a heavier weapon than the standard rifle. It was bulkier, darker, scarred from years of service. Unlike the alien's perfect beam rifle, it looked brutal, ugly, alive. When Hayes set his boots firm and aimed, the aliens tilted their heads, curious and doubtful. Then Hayes fired. The explosion of sound was a storm crashing in the chamber. The bullet tore across the hall, striking the same kind of wall panel. This time the impact did not leave a neat circle. Instead, the panel shuddered and cracked wide, shards of metal flying out like broken teeth. A hole the size of a shield now gaped in the wall, jagged and smoking. The aliens froze, their pride collapsing against the raw violence before their eyes. The commander's jaw tightened, but still he forced words from his lips. "Loud, uncontrolled, wasteful," he hissed. Though his voice shook, Cole finally answered, his tone calm but sharp. "Controlled enough to end what needs ending." He stepped closer to the shattered wall, his boots echoing against the silence. "This is not art. This is survival." The aliens grew restless, shifting uneasily. Some whispered to themselves. "Too powerful," one muttered. "It shakes the air itself," another said. One younger alien soldier clenched his weapon tighter as doubt burned in his glowing eyes. The perfect beams they carried had always been their pride, but now they seemed fragile in their hands. The commander refused to surrender pride so easily. He ordered 2 more aliens forward, their weapons raised together. "Fire!" he commanded. Twin green beams shot across the hall, burning into another armored panel. The result was the same, 2 perfect circles glowing side by side. The panel stood tall, scarred but intact. The commander spread his arms as if he had proven something. "Our precision cuts with certainty, while your thunder wastes its strength," he declared. Cole turned to Hayes. "Show them certainty," he said. Hayes adjusted his weapon, loaded again, and fired 3 shots in a steady rhythm. Boom, boom, boom. Each round tore into the same spot. By the 3rd shot, the armored panel was gone, ripped open into a hole big enough for a man to walk through. Not precision in the alien sense, but precision in destruction. The aliens stared in silence, their beams forgotten. The humans stood calm, their faces like stone. Ramirez finally broke the silence with a low voice. "You want to compare, then compare honestly," he said. "Your weapons whisper, ours roar. Your beams scratch, ours break." He pointed to the wall, where one panel had 2 tiny glowing dots, and the other had been torn apart into nothing. Which one would you fear on the battlefield? The question hung in the air like smoke. The aliens had no answer, only silence. They looked at their polished rifles, then at the brutal holes left by the humans. The difference was not elegance versus clumsiness. It was weakness versus survival. The commander's pride cracked, his glowing eyes dimming with the weight of truth. He muttered, almost to himself, "They build weapons not to look clean, but to win." The revelation crawled across the ranks of alien soldiers. Their pride was breaking. Their certainty was gone. Sergeant Cole let them stand in that silence. He knew the comparison had been made, and no words could erase what they had just seen. Human weapons recoiled, yes, but recoil was not weakness. It was the echo of power, the kind of power that left walls in ruins and enemies in fear. The history lesson. The chamber still trembled from the echoes of gunfire. 2 walls bore the scars of comparison, one marked with neat glowing circles, the other torn wide by brutal holes. The aliens no longer laughed. Their voices were whispers, uncertain and cracked. Yet pride dies slow, and still their commander clung to it. He lifted his chin and said, "Perhaps your weapons destroy more, but they are wasteful, born of chaos. No civilization that values order would design such madness." Sergeant Cole stepped forward, the weight of years in his eyes. He did not lift his rifle this time. He did not need to. Instead, he spoke, and his words were heavier than bullets. "You call it madness," he said, "but it is memory. It is survival." The aliens frowned, not understanding. Cole rested his hand on the scarred surface of his rifle. "This weapon carries our history," he said, his voice calm but cutting. "Every recoil you see is a whisper of our past." He looked around the hall, at the tall figures who had never known the hunger of war. "You see elegance in your beams, because your people did not crawl through fire to live. We did. Our world was not gentle. Our history was written in blood." The aliens shifted uneasily, their glowing eyes fixed on him. Cole continued, his tone growing heavier. "Before we left our homeworld, we fought each other. Cities burned, nations fell. We did not build weapons to look pretty. We built them to survive the day. When we made bullets, they were not art. They were hunger turned into fire. When we made rifles, they were not ornaments. They were the difference between life and death." One of the younger aliens whispered. "They fought their own kind," another muttered. "Endless war. They forged themselves in it." The commander's eyes flickered, but he did not speak. He too was listening, though pride kept his lips tight. Cole took a step closer, his voice never rising, yet it filled the hall with weight. "Recoil is not weakness. Recoil is the reminder. Every time the rifle kicks, it tells us the price. The price paid by those who came before. The ones who held the line so the rest of us could live. Ramirez, who had been silent, added softly, "We learned to carry the kick, to use it, to master it, because the world would not wait for us to be gentle." His young face was firm, his words carrying the truth of generations. Corporal Hayes lifted his heavy rifle, showing the dents and scratches along its frame. "This weapon has been in my family for years," he said. "It has scars because it was used, not stored in glass. Every mark is a story, every recoil a lesson when it kicks against my shoulder. I feel the strength of those who fired before me." The aliens were silent now, not from pride, but from something heavier, respect. They had thought recoil was foolishness, yet now it sounded like memory, like heritage. Their sleek weapons were perfect, flawless, but empty. They had no stories, no scars, no reminders of pain endured. Cole looked once more at the ruined wall. "You think recoil makes us weaker," he said. "But recoil is proof that the weapon holds real power. Power that demands respect. Power that cannot be used without cost. It teaches discipline. It teaches patience. It teaches respect for the shot taken." The alien commander finally spoke, his voice low. You carry your history in your weapons." Cole nodded. "Yes," he said, "and our history is not clean. It is not elegant. It is bloody, brutal, and hard. Our weapons carry that truth. Because war has never been about elegance. It has been about who walks away and who does not." A heavy silence fell. The aliens looked at their beam rifles again. Once proud of their shine, now they saw only hollow tools, precise but soulless. Cole's words weighed on them, the truth sinking into their bones. Ramirez broke the silence with a whisper meant to sting. "Maybe that is why your beams make no sound, no kick, no story, because you have nothing left to remember." The younger aliens lowered their eyes. Ashamed, even the commander did not answer, his pride bleeding away with every word. The comparison had been made, the holes had spoken, but now the lesson was deeper. It was not just about weapons. It was about history, about survival, about a species that had never been allowed to forget the cost of living. And for the first time, the aliens understood. Recoil was not weakness. It was the heartbeat of humanity. The test of fear. The alien hall was no longer filled with laughter. The echoes of gunfire, the scars on the walls, and the weight of human words had silenced the proud ranks. Yet pride dies slowly, and though the aliens had begun to understand, they had not yet accepted. Their commander's eyes burned with a dangerous mix of doubt and defiance. He raised his voice, steady but strained. "You show us holes in walls. You speak of history and recoil. But war is not fought on speeches or empty panels." He pointed toward the far end of the chamber, where heavy doors began to slide open with a hiss. "War is tested in the field," he declared. "Let us see if your thunder survives when the target fights back." From behind the doors, machines rolled in, alien drones, armored with thick plates, built for training soldiers. They carried energy shields. Sleek and glowing with green light, they were not alive, but they were built to resist. To the aliens, these machines were proof of their strength. To the humans, they were simply targets. The commander spread his arms, pride returning to his face. "Here is the test, humans. Destroy them if you can. Prove your recoil is more than noise." Sergeant Cole gave a small nod to his squad. No words were needed. They had trained for moments like this their whole lives. He looked at Hayes and Ramirez, and both men tightened their grips on their rifles. The tension in the hall grew thick. The aliens leaned forward, eager to see the humans fail. Some even smiled again, weak but hopeful. The test of fear had begun. The first drone stepped forward, its shield glowing bright. An alien soldier activated it with a gesture. "Strong enough to withstand our beams for 10 strikes." he boasted. Cole only muttered, "One will do." Hayes raised his heavy rifle. The aliens watched closely. The drone raised its shield, humming with energy. Then Hayes pulled the trigger. Thunder erupted. The bullet smashed into the glowing shield. For a second, the shield resisted, glowing brighter, straining. Then it shattered like glass. Fragments of energy bursting into sparks. The same bullet plowed through the drone's chest, tearing out its back in a spray of metal and smoke. The machine collapsed, silent and broken. The aliens gasped. One shouted, "Impossible!" Another stepped back in fear. Their shields had never failed so quickly, never broken so violently. Ramirez fired next, his rifle snapping with sharp thunder. A second drone fell, its armor ripped open as if paper. The recoil slammed against his shoulder, but he stayed steady, his face calm. The aliens stared in disbelief. Their beams left neat holes, but these bullets tore machines apart, leaving nothing to stand. Cole lifted his own rifle. He fired 2 shots in quick rhythm. Boom! Boom! The sound rattled the hall, the ground vibrating beneath their feet. 2 more drones crumbled, sparks and smoke filling the air. The smell of burning metal, mixed with the sharp sting of gunpowder. The chamber that once belonged to silence and order was now a battlefield of thunder. The aliens trembled. Some covered their ears. Others stepped back. It was not just the destruction that shook them. It was the noise, the chaos, the unstoppable force of weapons that did not care for elegance. The test had become something more. It was fear made real. The commander's face was pale, his glowing eyes wide. He had wanted proof, but proof had turned against him. His voice cracked as he whispered, "Shields meant to hold. Broken in one strike." He could not deny it. The recoil he mocked had given birth to firepower his people had never imagined. The last drone rolled forward, heavier than the others. Its shield glowed brighter, its armor thicker. The aliens leaned forward again, desperate to believe this one would endure. But Cole raised a hand to Ramirez and Hayes, stopping them. "This one's mine," he said. His voice calm but sharp. He braced his rifle, inhaled deeply, and fired. The shot thundered, like a storm breaking the sky. The bullet slammed into the shield. For a moment, the glow flared brighter, fighting to resist. Then it cracked, splintered, and shattered. The bullet drilled through the drone's chest, ripping it open from within. The heavy machine toppled, smoke pouring from its ruin. Silence fell again, heavier than before. The test was over. Every drone lay destroyed, their shields useless, their armor torn. The humans stood steady, rifles smoking, shoulders firm, not broken by recoil, but strengthened by it. The aliens no longer whispered. Their faces were pale, their pride crumbling. They had asked for proof, and proof had come in fire and thunder. Recoil was not weakness. Recoil was fear. Recoil was survival. Recoil was the reason the drones now lay in pieces on the floor. And as the smoke settled, the aliens finally understood. Human weapons were not just tools. They were storms in metal form, and storms were never mocked. The final realization. The smoke still lingered in the alien hall. The smell of burning metal and gunpowder clung to the air. Heavy and sharp, broken drones lay scattered across the floor. Their once proud shields shattered into useless sparks. The silence that followed was deeper than any laugh, deeper than any boast. It was the silence of pride, crushed under truth. The alien soldiers stood frozen, their glowing eyes wide. They had come expecting to mock, to laugh at primitive humans and their clumsy weapons. But now their hands trembled, their voices caught in their throats. Every memory of laughter seemed distant, foolish, childish. The thunder of human recoil still echoed in their minds. In the center of it all stood their commander. He had been the first to mock, the loudest to laugh, the proudest in his scorn. Now he stood pale, his jaw tight, his chest rising and falling, as if the weight of realization pressed down upon him. He looked at the wreckage, at the humans still standing tall, with smoke curling from their rifles. His lips parted, but no words came. For the first time, he felt something he had never felt in battle before. Fear. Sergeant Cole lowered his weapon slowly. He did not smile. He did not boast. His eyes were steady, cold, as if destruction was not victory, but routine. He spoke with a voice calm and heavy. You mocked Recoil because you never understood it. He stepped forward, his boots echoing in the hall. Recoil is not weakness. Recoil is proof. The commander swallowed hard, his pride battling his trembling voice. Proof. Of what? He forced out. Cole's gaze did not waver. Proof of power, proof of survival, proof that when we fire, something real answers back. The alien soldiers murmured in fear. They looked at the shattered drones, at the holes ripped through steel. Their sleek weapons suddenly felt light in their hands, almost laughable. What they once called elegance now seemed fragile. What they once called primitive now seemed unstoppable. The commander dropped his gaze, his claws curling tight. He remembered how he had laughed. Your weapons have recoil, he had said, full of pride. The memory stung like a blade in his chest. Now he understood the size of the hole that Recoil had left. Not just in the walls, not just in the drones, but in his arrogance. He turned slowly toward his soldiers. They looked at him, waiting for answers, for comfort, for pride to be restored, but the commander could give none. His voice broke as he whispered, almost to himself. They are not weak. They are not clumsy. They are terrifying. The words spread like fire through the ranks. No one laughed now. No one mocked. Instead, the alien warriors lowered their eyes, some even stepping back, for they had realized something too dangerous to ignore. They were not the predators here. They were prey standing before a storm. Cole gave a single nod to his squad. They lowered their weapons, not in weakness, but in control. The silence that followed was heavier than the gunfire. It was the silence of finality. The lesson had been taught, and no more words were needed. The commander clenched his fists, shame burning inside him. But even shame could not silence truth. He raised his head, his voice trembling but clear. We mocked what we did not understand. He looked at Cole, eyes full of reluctant respect. And now we know. Recoil is not a flaw. It is your strength. Cole did not answer. He simply turned. His boots echoed as he walked out of the hall, his soldiers following behind. Every step was a reminder, every echo a warning. The humans left behind only silence, smoke, and fear. The commander sank to one knee, his pride finally broken. Around him, his soldiers stood in silence, their faces pale, their hands shaking. The hall that once rang with alien laughter now held only the memory of thunder. The kind of thunder that could not be forgotten. The kind of thunder that carved holes, not just in walls, but in souls. And in that silence, the commander finally whispered the words that marked the end of arrogance. Your weapons have recoil, he said softly, and recoil has changed everything.